Hey everybody, what's up? Today we're going to talk about Kirk Hammett and his decision to take his foot off his wah pedal, which you think would be a good thing, but he decided to put his foot in his mouth instead. And it was reported yesterday in Guitar World that Kirk had stated, I hate to say it, but non-musicians, who are the majority of the listening world, are not going to remember guitar solos. Kirk Hammet says it doesn't matter how good or flashy a solo is, most people are going to forget them anyway. Now, this to me is probably one of the stupidest or dumbest things, the more stupidest things that Kirk has probably ever said. Coming from someone that's highly revered and respected as a guitar player, that has made some really memorable solos, and at one time, in my opinion, was really on top of his game. I think that times have changed, and I think there's plenty of melodic, memorable melodies from the guitar that are respected and revered by lots of people. I mean, how many times have you seen people play air guitar, to like Stairway to Heaven or Freebird or, frickin' Hotel California. The list goes on and on and on. Even if some Metallica songs, I'm sure. And, in my opinion, Kirk's best moments are the moments where he is the most melodic, the breakup solos in like Fade to Black or Welcome Home Sanitarium, the interlude melody to Master of Puppets, even the instrumental songs. I mean, the stuff that he's done is really, really cool. But I think at a certain point, looking back on Metallica's catalog, that Kirk gave up, and this is a statement from somebody that is trying to excuse their slop, their lack of inspiration, their lack of originality. And, you can tell when people compose ideas versus when people just go for it. And sometimes just going for it sounds really cool. But in Kirk's case, I can definitely, in my opinion, I can tell the difference between when he thought about something and worked on it versus when he is just going for it. So in this video, we're going to go through some of my favorite Metallica solos throughout their catalog and the albums that I think are important, the ones I think are decent. And, that's all my opinion. But we're going to gloss over a few, but we're going to start at the top, and we're going to start with a track off of Kill 'Em All. Killing is my business. Oops. That's another Dave Mustaine album, just like Kill 'Em All. But let's see here. What was I thinking? Yes. Wait for it. Here we go. The first track is Whiplash. All right. This solo is ultra bluesy. It's a Dave Mustaine solo from a Dave Mustaine song. It's got a huge Michael Schenker influence. If you don't know who Michael Schenker is, listen to some UFO and Scorpions. All right, but anyway, here we go. Whiplash.
Here we go!
Some shredding blues licks. A lot of open string pull-off stuff. It's a theme that he probably used throughout his entire career. I'm sure we'll hear that again. All right, here we go.
Whiplash!
Best part. All right, I think that's really cool. With the break in there, Whiplash, that's really, really cool. If you've seen the Cliff 'Em All video, that's Dave Mustaine's ideas in there. It's his song, once again. But, Kill 'Em All's got a lot of those. But I think it was cool because it's got the bluesy kind of style. It's got the breakup in there, and it kind of has a climactic finish, and, it didn't have any wah. Or if it did, I didn't notice it. But anyway, let's move on. All right, the next song is going to be from the next album, Ride the Lightning, and the solo is Ride the Lightning. Now, you could make an argument for, Creeping Death, which is really, really cool, too. At the end of that song, it's got the big, am I evil, open string, kind of stuff going on. It's got some, some tapping, and it's even got some arpeggios in it. But I think Ride the Lightning has, like, a better overall feel. It's more epic. I mean, Fade to Black, that song's got awesome solos, and those melodies are really, really memorable, too. But, this is what I chose for, the reason that I just stated. So here we go. Van Halen this. blues bass, but still melodic. Cool. Whiplash. That's cool. The dynamic of the music changes with the solo. Super epic. You see that all over the place. And that is an idea that has been composed, and it sounds cool. The music changes behind the lead work. It's got some different techniques going on in there. You know, it's not just a bunch of like bluesy wah stuff with a bunch of slop. You know, it's got a distinct theme that sounds really cool, and the harmonies are awesome. And I think that's one of Kirk's best solos on yet another Dave Mustaine song. But that's beside the point. Sounds great. And, you know, Ride the Lightning, of course, you know, honorable mention to Fade to Black, you know, Creeping Death, you know, any one of those songs. But I really think Fade to Black is one of Kirk's best solos. But I was trying to choose songs that were not the norm, you know, because these are memorable. They aren't the, you know, the necessarily like the Stairway to Heaven type of thing going on, but, you know, are that famous, but they're still cool in their own right. So let's move on. And the next song we're going to listen to is... Oh. Yes. Disposable Heroes. And, you know, once again, it's hard to choose a song off of each album and have it, you know, be the one that everybody wants to hear, the one that everybody knows, because it's tough. And, you know, once again, you could choose a bunch of different songs. And, you know, I chose this one because I think it has a cool theme. I think it has an overall, you know, a good vibe to it, and it changes. It's soloing over different spots. So let's check it out. Whoa, an arpeggio! Great, man. I mean, that's awesome. That's totally a composed idea. Lots of different techniques. We heard an arpeggio in there. And it wasn't, you know, Sanitarium or Master of Puppets. I think Master of Puppets melody, the interlude thing that they have with the clean part is probably one of the coolest melodies of all time. And that's extremely memorable. I'm sure that, you know, at the bar on the jukebox that, you know, people are listening to that air guitar in the bar or wherever, you know, you hear it in a movie or something, you see it, you know, whatever. And that's the one thing too, is like their music's been used in other mediums besides just like, you know, record CDs and streaming and cassette tapes, you know, like it was in, you know, movie soundtracks and stuff like that. So, you know, that's geared toward the audience, is not just, you know, musicians or guitar players. So whatever. And I have to say, you know, I was going to choose the solo to Leper Messiah because it had some cool arpeggios in it and stuff like that, but it was kind of short, where this had the same thing, but it was, you know, longer theme. It was really cool. There's a lot of similarities between that solo and the solo for Ride the Lightning. And that's what makes, in my opinion, solos memorable and cool, is they're melodic. They have a theme, and they change. The music dynamic changes with the solo because it kind of really uplifts the whole thing, and that's a lot of solos are that way. You know, Tornado of Souls is that way. You know, Fermented Awful Discharge is that way. Stab Wound. That's what made Necrophage just one of the best, you know, bands of all time, is because their solos were intricate, but the music changed with it. And I think as a lead player, you get a lot more mileage out of things if you have something to work on. If you're just like, here, you know, go for it one key, like that Marty Friedman video that I had done with. He was sitting down with Nick Bocott at Sweetwater, and they were talking about how to solo over one chord, and Marty's like, just make your own chord changes out of that bass drone. So, you know, if you're not adopting that sort of method, it's probably tough, because Nick Bocott even said that he would have to have the arrangement add a chord change to it just so he didn't sound monotonous. So that's one school of thought on the whole thing, or two schools of thought. But anyway, let's move on. So Disposable Heroes, you know, honorable mention. Damage Incorporated as well, Master of Puppets as well, Welcome Home Sanitarium. And those are really Kirk's best moments, or where they're super melodic. Welcome Home Sanitarium's, you know, intro solo, and the solo between the verses is really, really cool, and the main solo itself too. But those are really, really good moments, and I think those are memorable melodies. But let's move on. All right. So the next track is going to be One. And of course, this is one of Kirk's most memorable solos. I mean, this is an air guitar. I mean, I've seen the air guitar championship, and this is one of the songs that somebody used. And I watched that video on YouTube. It's super funny. But that's another thing. They have an air guitar championship for a reason. I mean, you know, that's says enough in itself right there. And they're using one of his songs. Anyway, so One and Justice for All. I like some of the songs. I like a lot of the songs, but I don't think the solos on this album, besides One, were that memorable. You know, Dyer's Eve is all right, but they just, you know, the title track is cool. And of course, To Live Is To Die. But I think on the entire album, this is the best one for a reason, because it's the one. All right, here we go. I mean, classic solo. You know, they made a Guitar Hero. There were video games, you know, like you could play that in the arcade at home. You know, there's people doing Guitar Hero stuff with the controllers that are getting millions of views on social media. That's super impressive. I don't know why some of these people just don't learn how to play a normal guitar, because they'd probably be really good at it. But, you know, there you go. Classic solo. We've all heard that one a million freaking times. It's on, you know, radio to the average listener. You know, it's not an unmemorable thing. So, once again, going full circle back to Kirk's statement that nobody cares, I think it's BS. You know, I think it's a statement from someone who has just given up. You know, this is the same guy that had a phone with a million song ideas on it. And it's just a shame, because at one time he was a killer guitar player. He still is. It's just, you know, I think that he just doesn't care to put the effort into it. And the whole thing of, like, you know, their blues era, you know, like through Load and Reload, and they did that Lulu album. I mean, I have a solo on here from Reload, to frickin' what is it? I think it's King Nothing, you know? Or no, not King Nothing, Fuel, my bad. Anyway, you know, the Fuel solo is really, really cool. There's a really cool arpeggio in it as well. It sounds different. You can tell when there was an idea that, like, you know, was worked on, and it just wasn't some, like, just going for it thing. Yes, going for it's cool, like I already said, but having a plan is huge, because I think it makes for better music. I think that the best solos probably start with just going for it, and then they're refined and worked on. And, you know, nowadays, you know, you notate it all, and then you go through it and, you know, try to make it as best as you can. And I think that this solo, like all the good solos, you know, they're compositions. So let's listen to Fuel real quick. The tambourine's kind of rough. That, to me, makes that entire solo the very beginning of it. You know, having the guitar follow the vocal melody, that's cool. Okay, I've had enough. Anyway, the beginning of that, for that era, we're just going to say that was the coolest thing. You know, there wasn't a lot to choose from. And, you know, the very beginning of that solo was awesome. You know, the arpeggio idea was cool. It was, I don't know, like some sort of Dorian arpeggio or Lydian, but it sounded really, really cool. And then it was just blues stuff from there on out. But on that era of Metallica, you get what you get. And I know that I skipped over Load, which is, you know, a decent album. King Nothing, of course. But, you know, moving on. You know, what can you do? You want to do the best with what you got? Let's see here. The next track is The Day That Never Comes. I think Death Magnetic is an awesome album. I think, to be honest with you, after the Black Album, Death Magnetic, everything else, I mean, Hardwired to Self-Destruct was some, you know, I wasn't that impressed. To be honest, you know, that's just my opinion, of course. But I wasn't necessarily impressed with 72 Seasons as well. I liked the track Luxat Turna. I think it was catchy and it was cool. But as far as overall Metallica albums, this album came the closest to the glory days. And I think this album kicks ass. And it's a shame that, you know, we're not hearing more Metallica like this, because we should. I think it's an awesome album. You know, it needs to be, you know, played more songs off it when they play it live. But anyway, let's listen to The Day That Never Comes. Cool. That's a really cool idea, man. Going for it. Having a plan. Tapping her hammer on. Am I evil? I mean, pretty cool. Not the most epic thing in the world, but I think it's really cool solo. Death Magnetic is a good album in my opinion. And, you know, it's a far stronger effort than anything they did. I think it's a better album than Load. I think it's a better album than Reload. I think it's a better album than Hardwired to Self-Destruct. I think it's definitely a better album than Saint Anger and 72 Seasons. It is no Death Magnetic. But that being said, you know, if Metallica would have put Death Magnetic out after the Black Album, we'd probably be having a different conversation. But anyway, let's go backwards to what I think is the best Metallica solo of them all. And my favorite one would be this solo right here. And it is Wherever I May Roam. This is really, really cool. Something outside of the box. Yes, there's some wah in it, but it sounds really, really cool in my opinion, because it sounds like, you know, the Egyptian Phrygian thing going on. It's composed, like it's thought out, and I think on the entire Black Album, you know, I like the solo to My Friend of Misery a lot too, because it's the harmonized solo is fantastic. The B-Bender thing was really, really cool. You know, I could really care less about any of the other solos on that album. I mean, The Unforgiven is one of the best solos of all time, don't get me wrong, and Nothing Else Matters is great too. And those are both great examples of solos that aren't complex, but they have a theme and they're memorable, and people probably air guitar the shit out of that song. Both those songs and that entire album. I mean, Inner Sandman, it's played in a basketball arena, you hear it in a football arena, stuff like that. I'm sure they played that shit on a tennis court somewhere, but that's music that wasn't. I mean, I guess it was contrived for a larger audience or broader audience, but yet again, there are people listening to that music that don't play an instrument that are probably appreciating the guitar work on that stuff. So anyway, let's listen to Wherever I May Roam.
Anywhere I roam, where I lay my head is so messy.
Appropriate use of the wah. We'll tolerate it. That's cool right there.
But I'll take my time anywhere. I'm free to speak my
At the end of the song, there's another bunch of guitar nonsense going on, and it's really cool too. And I think, the Black Album is probably one of the, best metal albums of all time because it was, commercially viable. But I mean best, maybe not in the sense of like the most metal album of all time, but best in the sense of, the songwriting was killer. They changed the game. They changed music history. They became, one of the biggest bands in the world of all time because of that record. And yes, it's not, Metallica's like 3 different bands or 4 different bands in my opinion at this point. But you know what? That was a really good record. And anybody that, didn't think it was good, like Paul Bostaph said, you are high. So moving on, there's one more solo I got, and it's going to be off their new album. And it is the solo to Luxat Turna. I think the song is awesome. It reminds me of like Motorhead and Judas Priest. And this is the latest offering that Kirk had. And I think it's an honorable mention because I don't think he completely, half-assed it on this one. But, it's got some moments of just like noise, wah noise. And I think it has more in common, believe it or not, with like Slayer's solos than it does with, standard Metallica blues-based stuff where it's got some arpeggios in it, a little bit of tapping here and there, but some melody. But I think this is just, foot on the wah and going for it. And let's check it out.
Luxat Turna.
Slayer. And I really like that song. I think it's cool. I think that the vocal production on that album is great, and on that song especially, it's catchy. And fun fact, I have a song called "Step Into the Light," and I was actually going to name it Luxat Turna, but I kind of thought the Latin thing may be a little overdone, and whatever. So, fun fact. But anyway, going full circle, Metallica, if they sold a lot of records. They influenced a lot of people, but they did something that makes Kirk's statement sound really stupid, is they inspired so many people to play music. I mean, when I first picked up a guitar, it wasn't because I was listening to, my sister's, frickin' Sade or like, CNC Music Factory stuff, or my other sister's Alanis Morissette stuff. It was my cousins that had like Slayer and Metallica and Testament and Megadeth. Like, Metallica was the reason that I picked up a guitar. And I'm sure a lot of people can say that, no matter how old they are. I mean, Metallica's transcended time. Look at Master of Puppets on Stranger Things. And the guitar solo was in there. What else can I say? That, reached millions of people. It made, I think, Master of Puppets and Metallica got like 1 billion streams on Spotify off that. And I'm sure that gave their career, at this point, a much needed boost. And I think the tour that they're doing, these massive arena tours, I mean, they'd sell them out anyway, but I think that the demographic of fans has probably changed because all those younger people heard that Master of Puppets on Stranger Things and it, increased their audience. And that's a good thing. And it inspired more people to play. And it's kind of like Mark Lopel said in the interview I did with him on my podcast, is that, there's nothing bad about Metallica rolling through your town. I mean, it literally, is a boost to, music, to your local economy. I mean, there's no downsides about it. And for Kirk to make the statement that nobody cares is just, I mean, the arenas say people care, and not everybody in that arena plays an instrument, or maybe they tried because they heard their music and it inspired them. So to me, ultimately, it's just someone that quit trying a long time ago. And I've heard, like we all have, we've heard the the solo effort and wasn't impressed. Sorry, but it wasn't that great. And I thought, what was so good about this? I was honestly expecting some from the statements and the things that Kirk had said, some sort of jazzy, virtuoso kind of stuff, guitar aficionado stuff, the fancy words and all this fancy playing that he talks about, like he said just recently as well, that anybody can do those arpeggios and stuff like that. It's just like out of a textbook, and no. That's bull. That's the things that people that can't play say. Like Yngwie Malmsteen has no feel because he plays fast. But if you listen to people like Zach Wild talk about Yngwie, they talk about his vibrato. He's got a scalloped fretboard. Yngwie says, nah, man, that's so my vibrato sings and the intonation's better. You actually have to play more accurately and it's more difficult. And, all these things that are just thrown around by people that don't know what they're talking about or making excuses. These are the same people that go into Guitar Center and spend $5,000 on a Les Paul Custom when they would be happier with a, $1,200 LTD Eclipse. So that's just my opinion on it. I think Kirk, misspoke on that one. Take your foot out of your mouth and put it back on your wah pedal at least, dude, and do, something you're good at, because with the statements that you're making are just bull. Anyway, everybody, thank you for supporting the channel, for watching the videos, all the guitar stuff as well. We got another podcast coming up this weekend. This next Friday, we have Paul McBride from Vorath, and then we have a 2-part podcast with James Murphy from Death, Testament, Obituary, Cancer, Conqueror, his own band Disincarnate, his own solo stuff. If you haven't heard James's guitar playing, you're missing out. Go check it out. Anyway, take it easy. Right on.